So the material for the Black Widow costume was a custom-made fabric, so it's not something that's available at your regular fabric store, and while it looks like leather from far away, it's actually some sort of dimpled fabric. So the closest I could find was some of those performance materials. So what I did was I picked up a second-hand shirt and a pair of pants that are made out of that stretchy dimpled performance material. And it's not an exact match with Black Widow's material, but it's pretty close actually. So the shirt I had has some sections of gray on it, so I'm just taking a black fabric marker and I'm just going to color over all the gray until everything on it is black. And so here's what it looks like when I finish painting it black. You can see the two colors of black don't quite match, but they're pretty close. So the next thing you want to do is just cut straight down the center of the top layer and put in a zipper. Mine actually already has a zipper. It doesn't go all the way down, which is the way hers did in the movie, but it goes, you know, a decent way, about halfway down, not quite halfway, about a third of the way down, and so I'm just going to use the one they already have here and just leave the rest of it blank. And if you didn't want to have to actually put in a real zipper, you could also just hot glue a zipper all the way down the front of the shirt. Since the material is stretchy and I'm doing it in two pieces, I won't actually need the zipper to get into it. In the movie, hers was a one-piece bodysuit, I think, but the belt will cover the line between the shirt and the pants, so I'm just going to do it in two pieces to make it easier to get into. So the easiest way I found to make the bodysuit was to put the pair of pants on inside out, and then I just took some pins and I pinned them all the way up, right around the outside of my leg. I stretched the material just a little bit, but not too much because I want to be able to fit into it afterwards. So I pinned the material all the way up my leg, and then I'm going to very carefully take these off without trying not to puncture myself with the pins, and then I'm going to sew all the way up that line of pins. So when you finally get the pants off, you'll probably find that a lot of places on your seam don't fit flat. They're not very good seams because you're just pinning this against your leg. So what you'll do is you'll take the pin out, but keeping track of about where it is. You just flatten out the seam and then put the pin back in so that you have a flatter seam. It makes it easier to sew. You want to make sure that you keep it about where it was though, so that you maintain the tightness. So once you've gotten your seam all flattened out, you'll just take some black thread, and while the pants are still inside out, sew all the way up your line of pins on both legs. Okay, so here is my seam line. It's a little bit hard to see, but basically once you've got your material sewn, you get the pants tightened, you just want to cut off the excess material about 1/4 of an inch away from the seam line. So here's my seam line right here, 1/4 of an inch from the edge, or the new edge of the pants. You just want to cut that all the way down so you cut off the excess material so it's not clumping up inside the pants when you're wearing them. Unfortunately, this kind of material doesn't really fray, so you don't have to worry about finishing the edges or anything if you don't want to. And so then here are the pants now once I flip them right side out, and they're nice and tight. So the shirt part is going to get tightened almost exactly the same way, but before you tighten the shirt, there's a few things that have to be done first. My shirt had a collar on it already above the zipper, so I don't have to add anything, but if yours does not have a collar, you're going to want to cut a black rectangle. If you can use some of the material that you cut off the pants, then it'll match the material at the top, and then you'll just sew that onto the collar to make yourself, you know, about 1.5 inch, 2-inch collar. And then you'll want to cut off some of the bottom of the shirt. So what you want to do is put the shirt on and then measure where it is on your waistline, and you want to cut off enough so that if you're going to sew the shirt to the pants and actually make a bodysuit, which you can only do if you have the full-length zipper, then you'll just leave a 1/2 inch below your waistline where the pants reach. But if you're just going to be tucking the shirt into the pants, leave 1 inch or 2 so that there's no gap when you move. And then the other thing that has to be done before you shrink the shirt is to put in some darts to account for the bust line. So what you do is, starting from the bottom of the shirt, you're just going to cut out about 1 inch wide at the bottom a very tall triangle, and you want the tip of it to end just below the bust line. And so you'll cut up to there and back down. You want the bottom to be 1 inch wide, then you just taper off to nothing. And then once you have that cut, you'll turn it inside out and then sew the two lines together. And then you want a second dart over on the other side as well. And that will make the bottom of it smaller to account for the bust. In my case, I am very flat-chested, so I'm not going to have to account for the bust, so you won't see any of those lines on mine. But if you have any kind of a bust at all, you want to put in the darts. And so then, of course, you do the exact same thing as before, putting it on inside out, and then pinning it nice and tight. On the inside, my gray still looks gray because the dye didn't go all the way through, apparently. do the same thing going up the body part of the shirt. And just make sure it's a little bit tight, and then very carefully take it off, trying not to hit yourself with the pins. Also, you want to make sure that your zipper is closed when you're pinning the sides, because otherwise you'll pull it open and you won't be able to close the zipper later on because your shirt will be too tight. And then just like with the pants, flatten out any seams that weren't quite right, and then you'll just sew along. And then just like before, cut off the excess fabric about 1/4 of an inch away from the seam line. So for the shield emblem that Widow has on her shoulders, just take a piece of 2mm craft foam and cut out a circle, and then if you just do a quick Google search for the shield logo, print that out and cut the pieces out of some black pleather, and then you'll just hot glue those onto the circle. So you'll make 2 of those, and then hot glue 1 onto each shoulder of the shirt. And so then Black Widow also has a kind of piping going down the front of her bodysuit, both on the top part and on the bottom part. So what I did is I just took some 1/4 inch double fold bias tape, and I'm just going to hot glue that down the front of the shirt on both sides. I'm going to start right up at the shoulder seam, and then just go down. And then just do the exact same thing going up the other side. I'm just going to hot glue that in place. In the Age of Ultron, it actually had some neon blue along with the black, but I'm just doing the plain black. And then of course do the same thing to the pants. And so then here is the finished bodysuit. It's kind of hard to see in the dark, the details on it, but they're there. And then it's pretty flexible, so you can do battle poses. Love is for children. I owe him a debt.